I have always believed that no two marriages are the same. Each marriage is unique in its own way. So it is unwise to compare all marriages with the same measuring rod. But I believe that there's so much that we can learn from hearing the stories of other marriages. And that is why one of the things I've resolved to do in this channel is to speak to married people and hear their stories, hear their experiences. And I believe that we can learn a thing or two from their unique experiences, from their unique stories. In today's video, I have the honor of speaking to an amazing couple who I've had the privilege of getting to know within the last year. They have an amazing story to share, and I will encourage you to watch till the end. David and Esther, it's lovely to have you on my YouTube channel, and you're the first couple guest on my channel.
Wow.
So I am privileged and honored to have you on this channel.
We are equally honored, aren't we? It's our
Very
privilege.
much so.
It's our
Very much
privilege.
so. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, so this YouTube channel is to discuss all things love, marriage, and parenting. And it is my hope that you will share your love story with us, your marriage story with us, and your parenting story as well. So thank you very much for joining us on this video today. And I have David and Esther Allen. Now, I'm not going to do the introduction. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. So, who are you and what are you doing in my house?
So, well, I'm David. I'm from Northern Ireland, and I'm in your house because you're very brave or very foolish, one way or the other. But I'm also one of your pastors, so
Indeed.
So it is a real privilege to be here.
Indeed, it is a privilege to have you, my pastor, in my house.
And I'm privileged to be here. My name's Esther, and I'm enjoying the cup of coffee that you've made for me. So anytime that I'm offered a cup of coffee, I will be there. And yeah, you're one of your pastor's wives, and I've been really enjoying your YouTube channel as well.
Lovely. Thank you so much. So David and Esther, as they've said, are one of our pastors. We've got Pastor Alan and Gail Mayer, who are our senior pastors, and you are co-pastors in the church. So really, really honored to have you on this channel. So David and Esther, if you don't mind telling us what your childhood was like individually. Where did you grow? What was your childhood like?
So I was brought up just a little town beside Belfast, which is the capital of Northern Ireland. I was brought up in the early days in a Christian home. My mother and father went to a Baptist church, and we were brought up, my brother and I were brought up to go to Sunday school, to go to church, and to basically be part of that in our lives. We always knew about church. We always knew about God. We had a lot of teaching in our early days about Jesus. And then whenever we had quite a big thing happen to us as a family. Whenever I was 9, my mother decided to leave with another man, which was a really difficult time for my father and for my brother and myself. But as a child of 9 and my brother is a child of 7, we didn't really totally understand what was going on, and we didn't really grasp what was going on. I myself wasn't emotional or anything at the time. I just was like really shocked that this had happened. But it changed the landscape for us as a family. It changed the way that we were brought up, because all of a sudden it was my father who had a really good job, and he had to literally take a number of demotions so he would have the time to look after us and to but my dad just stood firm in his faith in God, and he did what he could for us, and I'll never ever be able to thank him enough for how he had loved me and my brother, and how he blessed us. and then shortly, about 4 or 5 years later, my dad met my stepmom,
Yeah.
and they got married, and she's my mum in my eyes, and she's a wonderful lady, and she's been such a blessing to me and my brother. And she had a daughter, her first husband had died of cancer, so she had a daughter who became my stepsister.
Of course.
So all of a sudden I had a stepsister, so she was the same age as me in the same school, so that was that was difficult for her more than me, but it was difficult for us both all of a sudden, because you know, peer pressure and the way things go on in schools, so that was difficult. But that really, I had a difficult time in my childhood, but because of the love of my dad, and then my stepmom, I would say that I had a good childhood, even though there was that. But it probably did force me away from church until a little bit later on in my story.
Me, so I have a big family.
Right, okay.
So I have 2 brothers and 4 sisters, and so an oldest brother, youngest brother, and 5 girls in between.
Wow.
And I was brought up in a Christian home. My dad was a minister
Oh,
in the church.
Okay.
And
So preacher's kid, you were?
preacher's kid.
Yeah. PK.
PK. And my mum, we talk about it still, that she was super mum. So bringing up 7 children, all one after the other, being a minister's wife.
Yeah.
And I've just been thinking about this recently, about how I never thought I would be a pastor's wife, but what I have learned from my mum growing up, you know, she just was amazing. She always would have the freezer full of baked goods, food. She never knew when there'd be a guest arriving for a meal, whether it be another minister and his wife, our family. And so with 9 of us in the house, I mean, it was hard because, you know, we didn't have a lot of everything. You know, we weren't spoiled, but we were loved. And, you know, I have a lot of lovely memories of all 7 kids, us all just going outside, playing, entertaining ourselves. So it was a good childhood, and having the company, at times I always thought, oh, whenever I do get married, I want to have just 1 child. Right. I don't want to have a big family because it's not easy as well.
It isn't easy, not at all.
But no, really, but brought up in the church, going to church a lot, Sundays, you know, going to church in the morning, coming home, having our Sunday lunch, going back out for Sunday school, coming back, going back out to church, and just the busyness of that, and how my mum coped, you know, doing that. Because really, with my dad being a minister, my mum did a lot of the rearing of the children, but we learned lots of skills, and but yeah, good childhood.
Absolutely amazing story. I like what you said there. You said, as a family, children, you were not spoiled, but you were loved. And I think that's very interesting, that as parents, we need to love our children, not necessarily spoil them.
That's right.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. So tell us, how did you meet? How did you lovely couple get together? How did that happen? Tell us your love story.
There's 2 sides.
There's 2 separate stories.
Okay, there we go. We're ready to hear the stories.
You tell your side first then.
So so when one thing I want to make clear is that when Esther and I met, we weren't Christians. We we hadn't committed our lives to God. We were living in the world, as they say, and we both came from different situations. So for me, I was working in a factory. It was 12-hour shifts. I was making glue to go on to sellotape and onto masking tape, so it was for 3M industrial tapes. And one of the guys who worked, I would have cut up the rubber and prepared it to make the glue, and then the guy that was making the glue, he was going out with Esther's sister.
Right, okay.
And it's
One
not-
of your 5 sisters?
Yes, one of my
Yeah,
5
and
sisters.
is now married to one of
Okay.
her 5 sisters, Ruth. And Billy had said to me, we're going over to Newton Ards, which is where I lived, which was about 4 miles from where Esther had lived, and so they were coming over to this nightclub bar sort of place, restaurant that they were coming over because there was a band playing.
Right.
And he says to me, I'm coming over with my girlfriend and we're bringing her sister. Would you like to come and meet her?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, but what if I come and I meet her and I sort of don't
Don't like
really
what I
like
say.
her?
Right, yeah.
How do we make that not awkward? And he says, well, he said, if you don't like her, just excuse yourself and say you're going to go to the toilet.
Right.
Or if you do like her, buy a drink.
Nice, yes.
So I got confused. And bought her a drink. and the rest is history.
Right, okay. Well, we know what buying a drink meant in that situation.
That's David's side. So my
Right.
side of the story.
Okay.
So I had come out of a bad relationship.
Right, okay.
And I didn't want was it 8, was it 20? And I said, I don't want anything more to do with men. That's it. And so my sister said, well, look, we're going over to see this band that we liked. Come with us. Come with Billy and me. Okay, we'll go. So there we are at the bar, just enjoying ourselves. And then this man appears, David. Now picture this:
Handsome man.
blonde, lots of blonde hair.
So you had lots of hair.
Lots of hair. Blonde
Wow.
hair.
Long.
Okay.
Long.
Very slim.
Right.
But anyway, he's standing there, and I said, and who is this? And my sister said, oh, he works with Billy. I mean, what's he even doing here? And I still was no interest. And then and we went off to the toilet, and she still said, what do you think of David? And I said, what's he even doing here? We invited him, because I still didn't want anything to do with anybody.
Yeah.
And then the next thing came back out. The band started to play Prince Purple Rain.
Right.
And David said,
Okay.
are you going to dance with me or what? And that was it. We danced, and the rest is
It's
history.
history. Oh,
Yes.
what a beautiful 2-pronged story. Oh, that's such an interesting story.
Yeah.
You made a statement that you weren't born again before you got together. Do you want to tell us a bit more? And what was that like for you, being in a relationship when at that time you were in Christians? What was it like?
So this is the one part of our story where we sort of slightly hang our heads, because Esther and I, we joke about it sometimes, but at the same time both of us regret it massively. We because of our circumstances, Esther had just come out of a relationship and she had nowhere to live.
Okay.
I was living with my brother and my friend, and we came to the point where that was coming to the end as well. So really, being really brutally honest, 2 weeks after we met each other, we moved in together to a flat. We weren't married, we weren't saved, and we lived together for about 18 months.
Right. Okay.
Before we got engaged after 3 or 4 months. But probably the biggest regret of our lives was the fact that we hadn't, or that we didn't get married before we moved in together. But at that point, we weren't living to God's standards. We were living to a standard of the world that, and so, there'll be people possibly watching this and thinking, well, does it really matter? I think it does, because I think that it's even if we, and I don't like to do this, but even if we take God out of the picture for a moment, you're when you make those vows to each other, when you make that decision to get married, and then you stand together, and you make those vows, it's so special.
It is indeed.
And we feel that we probably, I think I'm right in saying that we both would say that we had wished that both of us had been pure, and we had both waited before we we lived together or had any sexual relationship or anything until we were married, and that goes, and that is, and I say I don't like to take God out of anything, but even without thinking of as a Christian, there's just something really special about resisting and waiting.
It's about marrying according to God's will and according to God's plan, isn't it? Because believe you or not, God instituted marriage. It is something that He instituted. And it's something He prescribed. But what do we find that in society today, so many people define what marriage is, and they just go by. So thank you really for honestly sharing that and giving that word of advice to people who are considering marriage as well. So that's great. Thank you very much. So what we want to know now is, how then did you eventually get married or make your marriage proper, if you like, in God's will? How did that happen?
Well, we got married in a Christian church. We did want to do that, and we went to the church for the 6 weeks beforehand, learning about the marriage course.
So what you call counselling, is that what it is?
Yes. And even though we were living together at this time, we still participated in that. We went to church every Sunday, and we picked the church we got married, and we picked it because it had a lovely huge weeping willow tree outside, so I thought that'd be nice for the photographs.
Yes.
So that's why we chose that church. And so as you know, as we said earlier about, you know, being brought up in the church, and then we both were in the world. We went along to the church, we did the course, and every Sunday we would leave church and say, the minister didn't even tell you about God or about heaven or hell. So we believed in God. And we had, whenever we met each other and we're getting married, we said we want to enjoy ourselves, we want to enjoy life, see what life has, and then whenever we're older, we'll bring God back into our life. That was our agenda. That was our idea. And so we had a lovely wedding. You know, I enjoyed the wedding, and we set up our home.
I enjoyed it too. I also enjoyed it.
And I feel, you know, it's 28 years this year
28
that
years.
we will celebrate, and
I need to.
Can I just on air publicly shame my wife and remind her that we're actually married 29 years.
Well, oftentimes it's the woman who is good with the numbers and the dates, but you've beaten her to it. Here you go, mate.
29 years. 29 years married.
That's amazing. Oh, that's awesome. In one of the very first sermons that you preached when you first came to the church, you shared a very personal, sensitive story about your marriage, and this has to do with the issue of childlessness, David. Would you be willing to share to us really what the story around childlessness was for you in your marriage?
100%. There's no problem with that at all. I would just can I just say, because in between us getting married and then childless being part of our lives, we had a big situation in our life, which we were married 8 months, and we found out that Esther had bowel cancer. And she went for tests, and they had found polyps, and they had said that they were pretty certain that the polyps were okay. They weren't malignant or anything, but they would send them away for tests. So that was fine, and they said that they still would like to remove some of these polyps just for, and so they done the tests, and within a few days we went from finding out this news that she had polyps in her bowel to the fact that one of them had already turned malignant, and they basically said to us simply, go away, spend a week together, and then Esther's going to have some very major surgery. So she ended up in hospital. we spent our first wedding anniversary with Esther in hospital.
Oh, no.
She'd had 4 major surgeries over 9.5 weeks.
Wow.
And at one stage, the doctors had sent me home after me being there for almost 3 days without going home.
Wow.
They sent me home, but they said that there was a chance that they would ring me during the night because Esther was that ill.
No way.
And I went home that night and I stood out in my mum and dad's backyard and I looked up to the heavens and I just cried out, God, I know I don't live it the way I should, but if you're real, please, please, please do something, because I don't want to lose my Esther. And that was the truth. And I went to sleep that night. I was so tired. And I woke up the next morning startled because I was thinking I've slept through the phone. And in those days, didn't have mobiles or anything.
Right, yes.
So I got up to the hospital, rang the hospital, and they says, it's amazing. She's turned a corner. She's doing much better today. And we both know that God stepped in and did something there. But I came up to hospital and she was sitting up in bed, and that was a great moment for us. But then, do you want to share how you found?
Yes, so then I started to turn the corner, started to get well, and one night a friend of my dad came to visit me. So I was in a private room, visiting hours had closed, and he was an old family friend, and he came in to visit me. And he had said, Esther, we've been praying for you a lot. Your mum and dad have updated me on your progress, and I know you've had a lot of major surgeries, and if anything had gone wrong in these operations, were you ready to meet your maker? And I said, no, but I want to be. So anytime I went into surgery, I would pray, Lord, just help me, be with me. And I knew that there were so many people praying for me.
Yes.
And so that night he prayed with me and I gave my life to the Lord.
Wow.
And I could honestly feel the burden roll away. I know I've heard about this happening to people before, like a rucksack just falling off your shoulders.
Yeah.
And I had the best night's sleep.
Wow.
And I got him to phone my mum and dad to tell them. And then David came up to see me the next day. And I told him the news, and he was horrified, and he just reacted. And we weren't big party people, or we weren't like that. But he just said, "You've ruined our life. Do you realise what you've done? You've ruined our life." And he left. It
wasn't my finest moment, but I was saying things like, you've made these decisions for us. Now our lives are changed, and I've been here looking after you all these weeks, like as if I was really. And in a moment I'll tell you what was worse about that. But I went to my mum and dad's house for lunch that day. I stormed out of the hospital, went up to my mum and dad's, sat down at their table, and my mum and dad said, "Did Esther tell you your good news?" And I says, "She did." And they says, "What did you think?" And I says, "Oh, it's wonderful." So I was a total hypocrite.
Right.
I had told Esther what I thought, and then I went up and in front of my mum and dad, I had said something else. And in that moment, I remembered calling out to God and asking God to touch her and make her well. And in that moment, I thought, you know what? I'm just so thankful to have her that I'm not going to be like that. I'm not going to be harsh and rude, and it's not me. So I went and I bought her a Bible, and I came back up to the hospital in the afternoon with the Bible, and I said how sorry I was, and I said I would read the Bible to her. So I started to read the Bible to her, and each day I did that until we left hospital. And about 7 weeks later, I was waking her up in the middle of the night and couldn't understand why, and I was saying to Esther, pray for me or read the Bible to me or whatever, and I just was so agitated for 7 weeks. But there was something going on in the background that Esther didn't know so much about, and this is another thing which again, we're so thankful that God was with us in this, but I had over the years I had became really addicted to gambling, and and Esther knew that I liked to gamble, but she didn't know that it had a real hold on me. But you see, with any type of addiction, addiction takes control of you. It's. I mean, I often work with people now who are going through addictions, and I know a lot of the time that the family don't understand, that people don't get it, they don't understand why they can't just stop what they're doing. But when you're addicted to something, it completely controls your mind, your actions. Even when you desperately want to get out of it, it just is a disease that's within you. And I had this disease with gambling, but gambling turns you into a lot more things than just a gambler. You know, I was telling Esther lies about money. I was taking money that was ours and I was losing it. Whenever I came home, the night that I made the decision to give my life to Jesus, surrender my life to Jesus, I came home and I said to Esther, I want you to pray with me. I want to give my life to Jesus. And Esther was over the moon. And we prayed, and then I said to her, I have something I need to tell you. And she said, what's that? And I says, look, there's a good chance you're going to leave me over this. I said, because I totally would understand it. And I said, we're £35,000 in debt.
No way.
And
£5,000.
And we were about to lose our house. We'd had, for 9 months, we were getting letters about, because I wasn't paying the mortgage or anything. And again, it was all because of that, but it still was me that had done it. And Esther just looked at me and she, bless her, she said to me, we're both different now. We've got Jesus in our lives.
Hallelujah.
And I got to be honest with you, Joel. God took the addiction of gambling away from me like that.
Hallelujah.
And I mean, I remember my friend and me sitting betting over 2 flies walking up a wall, of which one would go up the wall higher before it flew off. I gambled on everything, and God took it away from me like that.
So years of addiction just left.
But that doesn't always happen. And sometimes people have to go through the process and the pain. But for me, I also smoke quite heavily. I would have been smoking 30 cigarettes a day easily. And God didn't take that away from me in the same way. And I had to work at that. In fact, I continued to do it for a period of time until someone said to me in work one day, you haven't changed. And I says, I haven't changed. I've completely changed. But then I realised that all the things that had changed and the way I had changed were all things that people wouldn't actually see or realise or know. Because I always was a reasonably nice guy. So I wasn't ever rude to people or anything like that. So, but the one thing that they could see that they equated or put together and worked out that meant that I wasn't a Christian was that I was still smoking. So I stopped on that day and I said no more. If something you do as an individual or as a married couple prevents other people from coming to Jesus, then stop what you're doing. Because our job is not to stop people from coming to Jesus. That's our job is to bring people to Jesus.
Lovely. Well, this is awesome.
So Esther started to recover from her operations. She's the first person, I hope she doesn't mind me saying this, she's the first person in Ireland to have a man-made pouch made within her. So she had a stoma bag for a period of time, but then it was reversed and she has they made a bag inside her, so she doesn't actually have a stoma. And she was the first person in Ireland to ever have that surgery. And she was treated like royalty because of it.
Well, you do not look like what you've been through, Esther.
So
honestly,
it was a tough time, wasn't it? But God has been so good.
Amen.
But we wanted to start a family, and that's where the question originated. We wanted to start a family, and we were really desperate to have children. We were both heavily involved in kids work when we got after getting saved and started to go to church. Both involved in kids work. Esther very much in Sunday school and in Campaigners, which is an organised uniformed organisation, Christian, and I was involved in it too. And we just loved kids.
You had a strong passion for kids' work.
Yeah.
Desperately loved kids, and we desperately wanted to be. And we reckon we would have made pretty good parents.
They'd have been spoiled.
Watch out for the part 2 of this amazing story.